Welcome, everybody. It's Thursday, April 6th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, our nightly show we do about the war in Ukraine, the latest news there. I am reporting live from Washington, D.C., and as always, we will wait 2 or 3 minutes for folks to arrive. Once I go live, then TikTok and YouTube sends the message out for folks to arrive, so it takes a minute. Let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad, and maybe introduce yourselves, say where you're from while we are waiting. And like I said, around 2 to 3 minutes, we will officially start. So if you're watching this recorded, you may just want to zoom ahead 3 minutes. Anyway, all right, let me get my mirror in. There we go. All right, welcome TikTok. Woo! Woo, woo, woo. I got my taxes done. So excited. My God, it was so not fun. I mean, this year was particularly bad and confusing, but it's still better than paying someone to do it. Bonsoir, jingle, bells, cloche. I'm trying to remember what a bell is. Is a bell a cloche? Je me souviens pas. I think, maybe. Anyway, but yes, I got my taxes done. I'm very excited. So, God, that was not fun. Oh, God. So complicated. I mean, it's just, our system is bad. It's just very bad. I don't know how a normal human being does this. It's very, anyway, hello, strange brew de Quebec. Anyway, guys, as I said, we're going to wait a minute or two just for folks to arrive on TikTok and YouTube and the other services. Now that I've gone live, it sends the message out, and then we have to wait a minute for folks to come in. Yes, today I'm wearing one of my shirts that's for sale. This is one of those shirts that the Ukrainian girl designed, that she drew, of like a Ukrainian woman in the spring with the Ukrainian flag, wearing the sort of traditional headdress they wear, and then the angel's wings are fire. Really cool. It's a beautiful design. But yeah, the shirt, people were commenting on the shirt. It's for sale in our shop, so you can just go to store.aravosis.com, or just go to aravosis.com. Go to my hello. Thank you, Eld Polon for the mustache. Anyway, but go and check out store.aravosis.com with a link in my profile, and you guys can find all my shirts. Any case, let's wait another minute, and then we'll get rolling here. Oh, hello, Vitaly in Ukraine. Привет, welcome. All right, guys, we're about ready to start. I think we'll start. All right, let me get rolling here. So welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, getting something in my eye with perfect timing once the show starts, and a very cool gift as we get rolling from... Edsel, hey, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Good to see you again. And lots of little gifts coming in all of a sudden. Hey, everybody, thank you, Jetta Mom. Oh, sorry, me has a super chat question, which is more of a comment. You're always the best. I try to watch the show almost all the time. You always teach us a lot. Thank you. Thanks, Mom. No, I'm kidding. My mom doesn't know how to, thank God she doesn't know how to do that yet. My mom would be saying, don't send money through this, Mom. They take your money. You can give it to me directly. Anyway, all right, guys, let me get rolling here. Thank you for that, me. That was sweet of you. So the way it works is I spend the first half of the show doing the news. I go over the news that I think is important and tell you why I think it's important, what's actually sort of going on behind the scenes. And then the second half of the show, I take your guys' questions. To submit questions on TikTok, you can use the Q&A link that's in my profile. To submit questions on YouTube and everywhere else, you guys on my laptop, TikTok's over on my iPad over here. My laptop over here is YouTube and Twitch and everybody else. You guys can just use the comment box at the bottom. As I've said, I always appreciate when you guys do the super chat questions on YouTube, etc., or YouTube, the gifts on TikTok, because I do this full time. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out. And literally, this is my job. So to pay my bills is you guys. And you guys have been since I just finished my taxes, you guys have been very generous. You helped me break even this last year. I didn't really make much, but I didn't lose at least. I was afraid I was going to lose money over the last year. So thank you for that. Thank you, Ruby. So please keep the gifts coming. All right, it is day 406 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation. Still not going that good for Russia, or going that well. I wanted to start with a long discussion on how the Russian offensive has been going, and also some thoughts. Thank you, Ellen, for the confetti, and Ruby. I did thank Ruby. Talk a little bit about an interesting Twitter thread I read. Twitter thread is basically a number of tweets in a row. In other words, sort of a short essay that people do on Twitter. And it's by Michael Kaufman, who is a very good defense analyst, very respected by sort of all the defense cognoscenti or whatever, but sort of the defense hierarchy out there. And Kaufman did a series of tweets on where the Russian offensive stands and also kind of what we might expect from Ukraine. Now, very interesting with this that I'll tell you in a nutshell. In a nutshell, he's kind of saying, you know what? Both sides are going to have issues. Russia's in trouble. Ukraine, still not where they were a year ago. Even though they've got a lot of weapons, they've got a lot of different weapons that they've been trained on quickly that they've got to use. Their troops are tired. They've got a lot of new troops who are newly trained that may not be as experienced as the troops, from a year ago, who were the guys who had been fighting for years. So, I think it's a very fair assessment. Thank you for the bunny ears there. Who was that? Allie. I think it's a very fair assessment that Russia's clearly not doing well. But Ukraine, fingers crossed. Actually, I will tell you this really quick before I go through the details, because I do think his details were interesting. He basically says, the one good thing or the one thing we know looking at this over the last couple months that Russia has been fighting its big offensive, nothing happened, right? Remember, I had looked at one analysis that looked in March when the real fighting was going on, the big pushback from the Russians. The Russians won an additional 0.004% of Ukrainian land versus what they held before, and the Russians have lost tens of thousands of troops and a lot of equipment in this spring offensive they brought on, or actually maybe from Christmas onwards. They've got nothing out of it. So that's the good news. What he noted was that the Ukrainians have always overperformed, meaning every time we've looked at the Ukrainians in this war, they've done so much better than we expected, and the Russians have always performed as badly as we expected them to. So that's meaning, and we did expect the Russians to perform badly. So he thinks, looking at sort of the coming spring offensive where the Ukrainians are going to start fighting back. I feel like I'm watching Star Wars when I describe this, because basically the Russians tried to do a big push in the last couple months, kind of got nowhere, and the Ukrainians are getting ready for their big push coming up, maybe even in the next 4 to 8 weeks. And he's saying that at least the good news is the Russians are doing really poorly, and the Ukrainians always seem to do better. So he's got his fingers crossed. Now let me go through some of the details, okay? The Russian offensive, actually, I'm starting with something I was already telling you. Quote, the Russian offensive is going about as poorly as expected. Hang on. Sorry. Cliff has a quick little comment as a super chat. I'll bring that up since we're talking about this anyway. In 2012, a huge deposit of natural gas was confirmed off of Crimea, as well as oil deposits in Donetsk, which is in the east. And the Carpathian foothills, which is in the southwest. Is this the real reason for the war? It might be. It might be. I mean, I wouldn't be. Look, here's the thing, and we'll sort of get to the offensive in a second. Putin clearly, he's already said, he thinks he's Peter the Great. He thinks he's the guy that founded St. Petersburg by stealing land from the Finns or whoever it was, the Scandinavians. He wants to be seen as in history as one of the great czars, as one of the great Russian leaders, who basically the kings was what you'd kind of consider a czar, I think, in Russia. One of the great Russian leaders that made Russia great again, that helped expand Russia after the Soviet Union, which was pretty much Russia. It was a lot of countries pulled together, but it was pretty much Russia had the majority say. A lot of the other countries were pretty much hostages. Well, the Soviet Union dissolves. Putin was pissed about that. He felt that Russia was embarrassed because during the Soviet years, which took us from, I always forget, would you say 1917? I'm trying to think, like the revolution. I don't know when the Soviet Union was officially established. Was it officially established 1921 or so? In any case, around that era, all the way to 1991 is when the Soviet Union finally dissolved. Well, during that period, especially World War II and after World War II, people feared the Soviets because the Soviets were blood-killing murderers, and they were holding half of Europe hostage. Well, the revolution was 1917. I just wasn't sure, Koala, when officially the Soviet Union was established. That's sort of my question. But in any case, it's around. 17 was the revolution, but whatever. The point is, it's that era of time to 1991. What was I going to say with this Crimea? I don't even know how we went off on this tangent. Anyway, we were talking about the reasons for the war. Oh, yeah. So Putin, doesn't think Ukraine really exists. He thinks Ukraine is 1922. Thank you. Dan Metcalf just brought it up on, there you go. Dan Metcalf said USR 1230, December 30th, 1922. I had a feeling Thank you. See, you mock me. I had a feeling the USSR was a little few years later after the revolution. So here we go. In any case, Putin, A, doesn't think Ukraine really exists. He thinks they're just Russians. It's kind of a game they're playing and we need them back. B, he clearly has contempt for them. Although I think Putin has contempt for everybody, but he also thinks of the Ukrainians as, lesser people. Many Russians at least do. C, clearly Putin wants to be seen as the man, as I said, who made Russia great again. He wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union, at least in so terms as being a hegemonic imperial state that goes and throws its weight around the world in a really nasty way and eats up its neighbors. He's trying to reestablish that. So all of that are the reasons Putin invaded. And then even better if there were minerals or oil or gas or whatever, right? So all of that would help Cliff. So let me go back to this real quick. So let's sort of jump back in. So I was reading Michael Kaufman, who's a sort of renowned defense expert who did a really interesting thread on Twitter about where the Russian offensive stands in the East. And he said the Russian offensive is going about as poorly as expected. The question is, how much will Russian forces exhaust themselves? Thank you, Louis. How much will Russian forces exhaust themselves and be forced to ration ammunition? Putin has publicly commented on artillery ammunition constraints, forcing them to limit use. Thank you, Chuck. So one big issue for the Ukrainians, for the Russians, but also the Ukrainians, is how much will Russia waste a bunch of its ammunition and manpower? Thank you, Killers, for the hat there. How much will they waste their ammunition and manpower in this offensive now and not be ready for Ukraine's counteroffensive? But the same issue he'll get into later, the same problem he raises exists for Ukraine. He believes that basically the fighting in Bakhmut, and we've talked about Bakhmut before, Bakhmut over here in the east, okay? Eastern Ukraine, a town that the Ukrainians still control. Oh, hi, European. Good to see you, Yorgi. A town in eastern Ukraine that the Ukrainians still control. The Russians have been trying for like 7 months to take this town. They've not been doing well. They've been losing, and they've been losing a lot more men than the Ukrainians have. I've mentioned this before to you guys that the NATO estimates that for every one Ukrainian soldier killed defending Bakhmut, the Russians have lost 5 soldiers attacking. So for the Ukrainians up until now, it was worth fighting there because the Russians were losing so many more men comparatively than they were elsewhere in Ukraine. So why not fight in the spot that's most to your advantage if you're Ukrainian? The problem Kaufman brings up is he's worried that that advantage may have slipped away. He's worried, and I've seen other people suggest this as well, that we may be at the situation in Bakhmut now, that fighting in the east, where the Ukrainians are basically kind of even with the Russians now. They're not getting much of an advantage out of continuing to fight in Bakhmut, so it might not be worth it anymore. And the other issue becomes, first we were not worrying, but first we were hoping the Russians are spending too much men and too many weapons, basically getting the men killed, getting the men injured, and the weapons used in Bakhmut so that the Russians won't be ready for the Ukrainian counteroffensive. But the Ukrainians are also spending men and spending weapons. So the concern becomes, are they going to be using too much that they're actually hurting their counteroffensive a little by not kind of keeping their powder dry, so to speak? All right, a little bit more here. I hold to the argument in an earlier thread that Gerasimov, who's the top Russian general who is in charge of the war now. Remember, Putin's fired a lot of the top people that were running the war, including a guy I'll tell you about in a little bit. But Gerasimov, who's the current general running the war. Thank you, Edsel, again for that. I hold to the argument in an earlier thread that Gerasimov is exhausting the force with an ill-timed, feckless set of offensive operations whose gains will not change the strategic picture for Russia, but could leave Russian forces more vulnerable. Exactly what I was saying. Right? That basically Russia is fighting for a town that doesn't matter. Okay. Bakhmut does not matter. It really doesn't matter for the Ukrainians. It really doesn't matter for the Russians. And the Russians may be expending too much manpower and too many weapons for a town that doesn't matter. And it sets them up to be in a worse situation later on because they haven't sort of kept their powder dry. Right. Meanwhile, Ukraine is building out a sizable additional force, 3 corps, consisting of 6 maneuver brigades and supporting elements. I left that in for you military folks. I don't know the details of the military stuff, but I figured some of you will appreciate what that means. How many of these Ukrainian units will be complete and trained by the time of the offensive is unknown. So again, we're still not sure how well the Ukrainian forces are going to be ready and to what degree they'll be ready. We also don't know how much equipment they're going to have from NATO, right? I mean, have they gotten enough of the NATO equipment or not yet, or from the NATO countries? We don't know. The Russian military likely has the manpower and reserves to mount a stubborn defense, along with the minefields and entrenchments. So he's talking about when Ukraine finally does its counteroffensive, when Ukraine finally starts to attack Russia again, going on the offensive, going, basically when Russia has to dig in and hold back, and Ukraine's going, at them, the Russians likely have enough manpower to put up a very good defense. So that's bad. This does not mean Ukraine can't break Russia through Russian lines, but past offensives suggest that Ukraine has challenges sustaining momentum after a breakthrough is achieved. So what he's saying is basically Ukraine has shown in the past that they're able to break through Russian lines, but then once they break through the Russian front, they have a hard time kind of holding it. And again, I'm trying to put this stuff out there so you guys have an honest sense of where things are. It's not all perfect, right? More of this. Turning briefly to manpower, the Russian military still has a long-term manpower problem. That's good. The leadership is keen to avoid another mobilization wave. In other words, the Russian leadership, Putin, is very much wanting not to have a draft. They don't want to draft their men because they're afraid of people at home getting pissed off, and they're starting to be social unrest. At this stage, they're attempting to recruit 400,000 contract servicemen instead. Contract servicemen, he means literally people that join the military voluntarily, get paid, and they sign a contract for 6 months, a year, or whatever, and they're basically, paid soldiers. It's a volunteer. Actually, what we have in the U.S., a volunteer army, is what the Russians are hoping to do. Hence, I suspect that to rotate forces and replace losses, Moscow will resort to mobilization once again. So what he's saying, though, is he doesn't think it's going to work. Now, you got to remember, last year, the Russians tried to do this too, where they tried to use the contract workers. And what happened? It didn't work. Remember how they basically had to go and conscript about 300,000 men. And it forced almost 1 million Russian men to flee for the border and go to other countries because they didn't want to get drafted. He's saying he thinks in the end, there's no reason to believe that things should be any better this year, right? If the Russians, and honestly, I would say you should almost expect it harder this time. Because think about it. Oh, it was the gift there. Thank you, Ald. Or is it Ald Polon? I'm going to say, Ald Polon. Yep, thank you for that. I think it's even harder this time because think about it. The Russians had a hard time getting men to volunteer to fight last September. Now we're talking 6-7 months later, we're talking 220,000 Russian troops, according to NATO, have either been killed or injured in this war, a huge number when you consider that only 14,500 Russian troops were killed in Afghanistan over 10 years, and that was enough to help bring down the Soviet Union. You've got 220,000 men hurt and killed, okay? And you're trying to basically entice people to volunteer for the military when they now know this war is a disaster. They know this was supposed to be a 10-day war that is now, 406 days in. They know that this war was supposed to, they were supposed to be able to crush the Ukrainians, but instead they're getting crushed. They know that NATO is coming and helping out. They know that they're running out of ammunition. They know that their friends are getting killed because they're seeing the bodies come back. I cannot imagine why a Russian today versus a Russian 7 months ago would say, hey, I wasn't willing to volunteer 7 months ago, but now this sounds like a great idea, right? Thank you, class, or who was it, L for the classic breakfast. That was a new one. I figured I'd throw it on the screen to see if people were interested. A little bit more here. Bakhmut. Oh, yeah, a little bit on Bakhmut. Thank you, Kimberly, for that. All the kind of stuff is making me hungry. Thank you, Kimberly and Cheryl. Bakhmut. While Ukrainian forces, so Bakhmut, as we said, Bakhmut is the town in eastern Ukraine, right around here, that the Russians have been trying to get for 7 months now, and they're not doing well, and they've lost a ton of men, mostly Wagner mercenary group men, right? Which is the paid soldiers run by Yevgeny Prigozhin. Thank you, Erica and John. Bakhmut, he says, while Ukrainian forces have not been encircled, so the Russians have not circled them entirely, which would be really bad. The situation remains precarious and unstable. So basically, he's saying Bakhmut still kind of scary. What's going on there? The Ukrainians could still lose it. In Bakhmut, Ukraine sought to, he said, attrition Russian forces. I thought the word was attrite, but whatever. Basically meaning you keep fighting and you just kind of keep killing each other and winnowing down. So the idea was the Ukrainians were hoping to keep fighting in Bakhmut to just slowly kill and injure the Russian troops to bring their numbers down, right? So hang on a second. So They sought attrition Russian forces and fixed them in place long enough to launch the spring offensive. But the evidence is scant that Ukraine still enjoys a significantly favorable attrition ratio or that it is fixing a substantial Russian force. This was what I started the show talking about when I said that he's saying that it's not clear anymore that the Ukrainians have such an advantage over the Russians in Bakhmut, that so many more Russians are dying versus Ukrainians dying, so that it's worth keep fighting. So again, just throwing it out there that, and I mean, I think you guys knew this anyway. No one's saying the war is going to be won tomorrow, but he's saying there's still a lot of variables in play. Ukraine's doing well. Russia's doing poorly. Ukraine typically is doing better than we always think, which is great. And Russia has been living up to expectations by fighting very poorly. That's good. Who's winning? Good question, JG. JG Host is asking who's winning. Well, depends how you look at it, okay? In one way, Ukraine's not in good shape because Russia controls 18% of Ukraine, okay? Russia invaded and stole Crimea in 2014. This time, when they invaded last year, they're controlling all of this. Combined, that's 18%. Having said that, the Ukrainians got back 50% of the land the Russians took. So when Russia invaded, they also had land up here. They had land around here. They had land around here. The Ukrainians took all of this back, which was very embarrassing to the Russians, and got 50% of the land back. That was good. Going forward, as I said, Putin said and planned on this being a 10-day war. He invaded February 24th and was planning by around, March 4th, he was going to win this war. It would be over. We are now a year and a month later, almost 2 months later, a year and 2 months, so 14 months instead of a 10-day war. That's not good for the Russians. It's not, I wouldn't, it's funny. Some people were saying they didn't like calling it PB&J is saying a stalemate. Some people were saying they didn't like the idea of calling it a stalemate because it kind of keeps going back and forth. Right now, the last couple months have been definitely locked in place. Ukraine hasn't gotten much land back. Russia hasn't gotten much additional land. The spring offensive is what we're going to see what really happens. That's going to be the important thing. What is Ukraine able to do? The Russians had their big offensive in the last few months, did not do well. What will happen when the Ukrainians fight? And we'll see. Now, I will say, somebody just said, who was this? Sorry, somebody, oops, where is it? Maybe it was on TikTok. Somebody just said this is the way Biden wants it. And I fear this is the way Biden wants it, unfortunately. Thank you, Big Gator Girl. I think, look, Ukraine could win this war, and Ukraine would have won this war had we given them the weapons they needed from the beginning. We waited a very long time to give them this. We waited months to start giving them the HIMARS. We waited to give them Stinger missiles. We waited like almost a year, 9 months, to give them Patriot missiles. We waited 10 months to even approve giving them tanks, and the U.S. is still not going to get them tanks until maybe October, okay? And the other NATO allies are trying, but not doing so well at it. They're giving them some. We have, from the beginning, Biden telegraphed, and again, I think Biden is great. I think Biden is great as far as how he handled the war. But the one bad, he rallied the international coalition amazingly. The one bad thing he did, he's clearly afraid of Putin. Putin has psyched him out. Putin has convinced him that, there's the risk of nuclear war or whatever. And he said that publicly, which is terrible because that just tells Putin this is great. Biden's worried about nuclear war. I'm just going to keep talking about nuclear war. I predicted this a year ago, by the way, that Putin the Russians would talk nonstop about nuclear war, and they have. And we got them the weapons so late that they needed. So again, HIMARS. We waited several months to get them HIMARS, which is a really good rocket system in essence, okay? We waited months. Then when we finally got them the HIMARS, we gave them one. Then we gave them a second one. The next month, we gave them 2 more. And it went like this, la, 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 la. The tanks, as I said, we waited 10 months for the tanks. And now that we approved the tanks, and by the way, we approved the tanks because Germany browbeat us, it's taking another 10 months to even get them the tanks. Had all this stuff been done, and planes. We keep being told, we can't give them F-16s, American planes. That would take too long. Well, it wouldn't take too long. And by the way, that's BS anyway. We're lying. We're not worried about it taking too long. Biden's afraid of pissing off Putin. In any case, my point here is Ukraine could win the war if we wanted them to win the war. I'm not convinced we want them to win the war. We do not want Russia to win the war. We also do not want Ukraine to win the war. Biden wants a tie. He wants both powers to say, there's no way we can win. We've got to negotiate. And basically, Ukraine gives up some of its land. I think in a perfect world, Biden wants Ukraine to get back that big swath of land that Russia took last year, and Russia gets to keep Crimea. I think that's what Biden's about. And the problem, though, is it's not just Biden. France and Germany are trouble, too, and I'm going to tell you about them in a minute. Let me do a quick pitch for my Discord, and then we'll talk about Ukrainian counterattack on an air base in the southern Ukraine, which is really good news. I've got a Discord community. One of the ways that we sort of keep our community going offline when I'm not live with you guys is we've got Discord set up. Kind of hard to explain, but Discord is basically a way where people can get together and chat about the issues. There's always a good community that's chatting about Ukraine all day long, which is kind of fun. There's also a talking about all the Trump stuff right now, our pets, recipes. I mean, you name it, lots of different sports. I don't check out the sports section, but there's a good sports section as well. But very, very useful. Oops, hang on a second. Is this for DC or where? Oh, severe thunderstorm warning. Uh-oh. Ew, that's my dog's not going to like that. I wasn't even looking. You guys can almost tell it's much scarier looking when you look out the window than what it looks like right now. That's like a big, nasty dark cloud and then lighter sky below it. Well, hopefully my dog does not hear this because she flips out with thunder. So normally I give her happy pills when this is happening, but let's hope that it's even a little green over there, which I'm not thrilled about. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Being from the Midwest, we are taught to pay. I didn't see the flash. Fortunately, she didn't either. Being from the Midwest, we're taught to pay attention to the weather, tornadoes and things like that. And the sky is turning green over there, which is one of the telltale signs of tornadoes, or it's a danger. It's a definite wall cloud, but it's one of sort of the danger signs of possible tornadoes. And it's a really cool. It's like an emerald green. It's a beautiful color in a way. But growing up as a Midwesterner, you know. Oh, we stood on our porches. I did that too growing up. I loved to stand on my porch and watch the storms come in, even though kind of dangerous. Thank you, Donka Shane, for that. Okay, back to what we're saying. Discord. Sorry, I just noticed my phone had a warning about a tornado, thunderstorm warning. So I just wanted to pay attention. Yeah, it's a wall cloud, but it looks like it's passing us, which is good, even though it's a little green. Okay. Anyway, what was that? Thank you, G-Dub and User, for the gifts. So, green is bad. Exactly. Sorry. Back to the news. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to give you a tornado update, though. I think we're okay, but God, it's really not happy. But well, all right. I'm keeping my phone here just in case. Yeah. Well, it's a severe thunderstorm warning. That's okay. We can handle severe thunderstorm warnings. All right. Any case. Discord. So I was telling you about our Discord. So Discord's a really cool way that we get to sort of hang out each other after hours. And I'm able to basically provide for myself to keep these broadcasts going and to provide for Ukraine. We've been doing these really cool auctions of stuff. I'll show you one or two things. I don't want to show you all the same stuff every night, but I'm getting a lot of cool stuff from Ukraine. And I've also sort of dug into some of my stuff I've had over the years, like sort of a cool piece of the Berlin Wall that I broke off in Berlin in early December of 1989. So I'm auctioning off a piece of that. I've got, I will show you really quick. Actually, this we just finished auctioning. This is a piece of a Russian fighter jet that the Ukrainians shot down. This one just got bought by somebody. Congratulations. Really cute little Christmas ornaments that are also fridge magnets. It's a Christmas ornament fridge magnet, which is kind of neat because in the off years or the off months, you can put it on your fridge. They're all Ukrainian. And the, what was the other? I was going to show you one more thing. Oh, I won't show you anything right now. I mean, I don't want to go overkill on this, but we've got a lot of really cool Ukrainian stuff that is for auction, and half the money we channel back to Ukraine. Right now, we're using the money to buy camouflage nets for the military. That's been really important. And the other thing is the other half of the profits go to support me because it helps me pay my bills because I'm doing this full time. And, there you go. Well, Edsel, if all goes well, you might have another chance. I'm going to leave it at that. It's going to be a few months, but if all goes well, you might have another chance. But I decided in the last week or so to see if I can get some more. But let's see if I'm able to. It won't have we're talking about the airplane parts, the Russian airplane parts. I'm trying to get some more, but if I get them, I won't have them until the middle of May. So, just wait, but I think you'll have another chance. All right, in any case, go check it out, discord.aravosis.com. You guys can find it at aravosis.com, bottom of the screen, and you guys can find my Discord over in the profile, the link tree link. All right, let's get rolling now. Yep, all right, it's passing. Good. The scary wall cloud is almost done, and it's green. Hold on, I'm going to take a picture for you guys of this. I don't know that you'll be able to tell well enough. Let me see here. No, you can't tell on the phone. It doesn't look green in the camera on the phone. It's green in person. Anyway, all right, guys, let me keep going here. So, Ukraine, this was good. Ukrainians attacked a Russian airbase in Melitopol, which is fabulous. Melitopol is a Ukrainian town, southeastern Ukraine, right over here, that the Russians have been occupying for a while now, since the war began. And it is in this whole stretch that the Russians are currently occupying. What's interesting is, in terms of the big Ukrainian counteroffensive, we're still kind of trying to figure out, well, I'm sure the U.S. knows, because I'm sure the Pentagon is helping Ukraine plot this out. But for the rest of us to kind of figure out, okay, what's next? Ooh, wind is going now. What's next in terms of where the Ukrainians go? Will they try to go here, for example, Zaporizhia, which could include Melitopol, Mariupol, and try to cut the Russian-held territory in half, right? You've got Russia holding all of this. This helps them connect to Russia, which is over here. So it forms a land bridge all the way to Crimea. If Ukraine can go and take this area, it cuts Russia over here from Russia-occupied Ukraine, of course, but Russia over here. That causes a big problem for Russia. The Ukrainians could also try to go for Kherson over here, which puts them down here right at Crimea and then helps them take back Crimea. Lots of possibilities here. Well, what has been happening is the Ukrainians in the last week have been doing a really good job going after Melitopol, which is right here. And well, I'll tell you first what they've been doing. So they attacked a Russian airbase last night. There were reportedly several explosions. The Russians claimed, oh, nothing happened. They didn't hit anything. Our air defenses worked perfectly. They didn't hit anything. Well, there were multiple explosions, and they sent ambulances. The Russians sent multiple ambulances to the airbase. Why would you send multiple ambulances if your air defenses shot everything down before it got there? Right? Ooh, now we got a good storm going. All right, that's good. Earlier yesterday, there were also 2 other strikes in the city. And then a week ago, Ukraine attacked ooh, can you hear it? I love a good storm. I really do. If you can hear I love good storms. It is. Being a Midwesterner, this stuff, other than the fact that my dog hates them, I always get so excited when it rains and you can just hear I wish I did have a balcony, because I loved being able to sit on the porch and you can just like watch the rain and listen to it, and you don't get sopping wet. In any case, they also attacked the Ukrainians a railway depot last week. Now, what's going on here most likely is the Ukrainians are basically softening up the territory. They're shaping it, they would say in military terms. This would suggest that the Ukrainians at some point, maybe soon, are planning to attack this area. The fact that they keep hitting it again and again and again means they're doing this in preparation for an attack. Now, Kapis, our friend in Czechia, says that Melitopol is a main logistical hub there. It needs to be damaged as much as possible in any case to prevent any transports for Russians. So yeah, I mean, part of it, oops, getting my slipper here. Where'd my slipper go? I'm trying to get my slipper on. The Ukrainians are clearly doing this because part of their plan is going to be to go after Melitopol, most likely. More news. I've got a lot of news today, actually. Oh, so Ukraine is backing away from the comments we talked about yesterday about Crimea and negotiations. So the story broke yesterday. It was kind of weird that a top Ukrainian official basically said that they would, the Ukrainians would be open to negotiations with Russia more or less once the Ukrainians take this back and they're on the border with Crimea. Then they would consider talking to Russia and they would talk about the status of Crimea. Well, we were talking about that and going, what is that about? Thank you, Dee, for the hearts there. We were talking about that and going, like, what is that? Are the Ukrainians suggesting that they may not be interested in getting Crimea back, that they might be willing to negotiate Crimea away. It was very weird. Well, the Ukrainian government realized that was the message that they sent out, and they quite strongly pushed back today. Oh, thank you, Kimberly, for that. They quite strongly pushed back today. A number of officials said, no. We're not getting rid of Crimea, and B, we're not going to negotiate until we get everything back. One in particular, a top advisor to Zelensky, Mikhailo Podolyak, said, thank you, Dankeschön, said that the basis for any negotiations had to be a complete withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukraine's borders as they were internationally recognized after the fall of the Soviet Union. That includes Crimea. So my guess there is it's still possible that Zelensky or his aides were trying to play some kind of game there. The problem is, thank you, Evolving, even if it was intentional what they said and they were trying to play a little misinformation game or something else, it got interpreted badly, so they felt the need to go out and correct it. So who knows what's going on basically at this point. Thank you. Was it Wachita Dad? Wachita Dad? I'm going to call you that. Thank you. British Ministry of Defense says, this was good news too. So it looks like a senior Russian general in charge of the battle in eastern Ukraine. Now, eastern, more or less, we're talking, well, actually, eastern Ukraine, I've got a feeling, I don't know how far it goes, but part of it definitely includes up here, because he took over for the guy before him that got fired, because what happened before was the troops in sort of the northeast were coming down to Kyiv, and they got just wiped out by the Ukrainians. So that basically his predecessor got fired for screwing up the Battle of Kyiv. Remember how the Russians came to Kyiv from sort of the north and sort of the northeast, and just the Ukrainians wiped them out. Well, his predecessor gets fired for that. So this guy gets hired. Thank you, user 822 for the Easter eggs. This guy gets hired and basically botches the Battle of Vuhledar. Now, Vuhledar is Vuhledar is more or less around here. Okay, so eastern Ukraine still. So Bakhmut's all the way up here. Vuhledar is down here, sort of southwest of Donetsk. And Vuhledar is another Ukrainian town that the Russians have spent months trying to get, maybe 3 months, and they have killed themselves. I mean, the Russians got obliterated. This is the town where I was telling you guys about, that the Ukrainians set up all these landmines on the sides of the road, but not on the road. And there's only like one main road because the fields are so wet. The tanks, for example, have to go on the road. They can't go in the field. And once this big row of tanks and military vehicles started going up the road, the Ukrainians started firing at them. Well, once the Ukrainians started firing, some of the tanks, for example, can just turn around like this. Other vehicles had to turn, and as soon as they turned, like did a 360, they went off the road and hit a mine. Well, then you hit the mine and you're stuck. So now nobody else can move. So they basically destroyed enough of the tanks at the beginning and the end. Anybody who tried to get off the road got blown up, and they just kept attacking and blowing them up. Well, the Ukrainians did this again and again and again for 3 months. They destroyed the Russians, and the Russians kept coming back for more. I mean, it was insane what they did. Well, this guy was in charge of Vuhledar, among other areas. So it looks like, according to the British Ministry of Defense, it looks like they just 360. Right? It wouldn't. Well, knowing the Russians, Mario, it probably was 360. But Mario's correct. The Russians should have turned 180. But again, we're talking Russians, so I might have actually been correct. They probably did do 360. No, good point, Mario. So according to the British Ministry of Defense, it looks like this general got fired as a result. He is the highest level Russian official to be, a Russian military official to be fired this year. But I love how they say this year, because there was a slew of them last year. There you go. Yeah, he got fired because of all the casualties, because of how many Russian soldiers had been killed and injured. European Union. So there's a squabble going on, which is rather annoying, between the members of the European Union. We reported about 2 weeks ago, I think, that European Union had gotten together, and it was kind of cool what they did. They got together and agreed that they were going to find 1 million rounds of ammunition for the Ukrainians. And for 2 weeks now, the Europeans have been fighting amongst themselves about whether or not, well, basically, who they're going to get the weapons from. right? Does it have to go exclusively to European companies? The French are pushing for that. The Greeks are pissed because the Greeks don't want any money to go to the Turkish companies. So it's this ongoing battle. And what happens is, and today it was announced, they still don't have a deal. So they're squabbling amongst themselves rather than helping Ukraine, which is not a good thing. I get the concern. I would say I've got maybe I'm biased. I can understand why Greece is worried about helping the Turkish defense industry when Turkey is threatening to invade Greece. Fair enough. But for the French to sit there and go, it's sort of like saying buy America. Give me a break. If you're trying to help save Ukraine, and mind you, Ukraine's in Europe. It's on the border there with all of their countries. Maybe you should just help Ukraine and stop worrying about, look for the union label, right? All right. Oh, I'll tell you about my Patreon and then 3 more stories and we'll do the questions. So Patreon, which you can find my link on YouTube right there, patreon.com/Aravosis, well, YouTube and everything else. For you guys, you can find it in my profile. Again, the Linktree link in my profile gives you all of my links to Discord, Patreon, you name it. Well, Patreon is a really neat way to basically support creators by giving them a set contribution each month. And, $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month. I've got one guy, God bless him, who's giving $100 a month. And it's a way of it repeats automatically. And you cut it off whenever you want, of course. And for the creators like me, it's nice because you can see how much money's coming in and it's a steady stream of money. So it basically, eventually, I hope I won't have to give you as many pitches during the show because there's enough money coming in on Patreon. Then I can stop worrying about it. But at this point, as I said, I still need help paying the bills. Thank you, D, for the Easter eggs. Still need help paying the bills because I am doing this full time and I am doing it for free. And I'm not wealthy, so somebody's got to pay the bills. And fortunately, you guys have been helping me pay the bills. So thank you for that. So please do keep the gifts coming with the super chats and the gifts on TikTok. But check out the Patreon as well. If you can afford it, if you can't, don't worry. If you can afford it and you've been watching for several months, maybe consider going and make a $5 contribution or something if you can. Again, a cup of a frappuccino a month. If you can afford it, I'd appreciate it. So thank you guys for that. Again, link is in my profile on TikTok. Link is on the bottom there, patreon.com/Aravosis. So more squabbles. This was really annoying too. So really annoying here. Another troll. That's a good point, actually. The troll was saying, you've got enough money, you're a lawyer, except that I'm not practicing as a lawyer. So what that means is I spent $60,000 on my legal education, had to pay $120,000 back because that's the way it works in this country. And instead of making a lot of money, which I could do, I've decided to devote my time to helping save Ukraine and for free, even though it's full time and I'm not making money doing anything else. So that's why I'm asking for help, Mr. Troll. So there you go. So it all depends on whether if you want creators doing this stuff. As I always quote my Argentine politician, when the guy when the construction worker said, "Hey, Maria Julia, qué cool, pero Argentina, pero qué culo." Like, "Hey, Maria Julia, what a nice ass you've got." And she looked and she goes, she told me this. She goes, "I turned and I pointed to my butt and I said, ¿Te gusta? Votalo." You like it? Vote for it. Because she was running for the presidency. So same idea. You like the show? Help me out. All right, guys, enough of that. So the New York Times reports, listen to this. This was really obnoxious too. So Zelensky was invited to the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania in July. He said that he doesn't want to come, which I really like this actually. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate that. He doesn't want to come unless to the NATO summit, unless NATO gives him a concrete framework for when and how Ukraine can join NATO, rather than, mind you, we're talking 2008 that Ukraine and Georgia applied to join NATO, and NATO said, great. 2008, guys, 15 years ago, right? And it's not going anywhere. So they said Ukraine wanted a roadmap towards NATO membership. Like, okay, what do we have to achieve? What this kind of stuff. Guess who got upset about it and said, no, we're not going to give you a roadmap? France and Germany. Central and Eastern Europe, which would mean Czech Republic, obviously not Hungary because they're run by a dictator, but Central and Eastern Europe. So you're talking certainly Czech Republic, certainly Poland, certainly the Baltic states. But my guess is some of the others might be good too. Bulgaria might be good. Romania, who knows, right? But certainly maybe Slovakia. But in any case, the Germans and the French said, nope, we're not going to give you a framework. We're not going to give you a framework. And Hungary, of course, is horrific. We know that. It just pisses me off. Yeah, whatever. And again, Hungary is going to be a pain anyway, but France and Germany. And again, Germany has really sort of exonerated itself, really, in many ways. I mean, Germany, let's face it, we were not really thrilled about how Germany was at the beginning. Well, I should say at the very beginning of the war, Germany was great, and then kind of wasn't being so good. My impression, at least, has been since the whole tank situation in January, when Germany actually forced the United States to pony up our tanks, Germany seems to have been quite aggressive in the last several months, which is great. Stuff like this still worries me. Moscow Times reports that another top commodity manager has died in Russia under mysterious circumstances. Over the past 15 months, under unclear circumstances, about 40 top managers, businessmen, and other Russian managers have died. Just putting that out there. Ukraine has launched an app, like a phone app or iPad app, to help find the 19,000 children Kyiv estimates have been allegedly deported to Russia. Thank you, Valerie, for the fireworks. And I can see all the roses popping up too. Thank you guys for those. But in any case, they've got the app to help the kids try to find their parents, and the police are the middlemen on the app to help sort it out, so there won't be anybody, threatening kids or anything weird like that. Last little story. I thought this was almost kind of funny. This is an example again of Russia not being quite, I think, aware of what they're doing. So Wikipedia's owner, oh wow, look at that. Now we're getting like a break in the clouds with sunlight now. Wikipedia's owner has been fined by a Russian court for not deleting content related to an alternative rock group designated extremist by Russia. The Wikimedia Foundation must pay £8,000. I think this may be from Sky News. The Wikimedia Foundation must pay £8,000, which is $10,000, over information about a song. So in other words, this is a Wikipedia entry just about a stupid rock group the Russians don't like, because the rock group must have songs they sing that are anti-war. Okay. So this is, thank you, user H6 for the babbity rabbity. I almost missed that. Thank you. Listen to this. There's because of information about a song by the Russian band Psychia. Now, or Psychia. So Psychea. So Psychia maybe in Russian. Psychea. According to Russian news agencies, bringing the total it has been fined in the past year to more than £88,000 or $110,000. This is my favorite. Russia has for years sought to launch a homegrown online encyclopedia, with Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov saying it was absolutely necessary today. Or yesterday he said this, or no, Tuesday of this week, I'm sorry. It was absolutely necessary. It would contain truly verified, this is from the Russians, it would contain truly verified and accurate information, objective information. Oh yeah, sure, says the guy that's throwing people out windows, right? Because we know that Wikipedia has many distortions, very many untruths, very many historical, factual, and other mistakes. These people, could you imagine a Russian somebody ought to just make one. If I were younger, I would just make a Russian Wikipedia, but I mean, make one that's just over the top crazy. The moon is made of blue cheese. I mean, all this kind of stuff, right? Just to imagine though. I love that. Oh, it would finally be objective. Okay, sure. All right, that's it for the news. We will go do the Q&A now. Also, I do have a store set up. I was saying before the show started, I've got cool Ukrainian-themed T-shirts. This is one that a Ukrainian girl drew, and we got the shirt. We got the rights to it. I should say they were drawing and made it into a really cool T-shirt that shows a Ukrainian girl with the Ukrainian flag dressed as an angel, but her angel wings are fire. So it's like she's walking through the fire. Really cool. But you can find all of those. Half of the profits go back to Ukraine. Half of them go to support my work. You can find all of those over at store.aravosis.com. So go check those out. You can find all the shirts. Go get one, Cheyenne. Go to my profile, click on the Linktree link in TikTok, and you'll see the links in a row. Just look for store. I think it may be the second link, maybe. but you'll see it right in there. Go check them out. And for you guys, same thing, store.aravosis.com or just aravosis.com. My last name will give you the list of links. So here we go. All right, Q&A. So on TikTok, you can submit your questions via the Q&A link in my profile. For you guys, you can obviously use the question box at the bottom. The shirt this one is red. It does look a little orange on YouTube. You're right. This one is actually red. But I may have put, I only picked colors that went with the design. So I don't know if I've got orange per se, but the red's really nice. It's a beautiful, it's red. It's not orange like here. It's a beautiful kind of dark red. All right. So submit your questions on TikTok, submit them here. As always, if you want to do super chat questions, I love you. If you want to do more TikTok gifts, love you too. But let me actually, who knows? I mean, Tired Guy is asking, been meaning to ask, do you think Alexei Navalny, who is the opposition leader in Russia that Putin jailed because he's doing too well in the polls, do you think Navalny and tried to poison as well, do you think Navalny is still alive because Putin may be afraid of turning him into some sort of martyr? It is interesting because typically, Putin's not shy about killing people, right? Look, if Putin is worried about domestic unrest because of having up a military call up, so he's not willing to have a big draft, because he's afraid of even having another one. He had a small one in the fall, right? Maybe not small, but 300,000. If he's afraid of doing that because of domestic unrest, I wonder if he's not afraid of the same thing with regards to Navalny. Clearly, there's some concern there, right? Thank you, G-Dub, for the birthday cake. Not my birthday, but appreciate it anyway. Probably my half birthday, maybe. Maybe a little more than my half. My birthday is not till November. But thank you for that anyway. It's red on TikTok. That's funny. I'm right. I like that. I'm right. Well, thank you. I am right. It is a red shirt. No, but exactly. I was thinking on TikTok it might look red. It definitely is more orange here. So let me pull up some TikTok questions as well. How to ask a question. You can go to the Q&A link. It doesn't work for everybody. You can also try to post one here on the screen. I try to sort of pick questions off the screen as well. It's just easier in the Q&A because they don't go away. They don't sort of scroll. I can always pull them up here on TikTok easily. I saw a Russian troll on TikTok say, remember 20 million Soviet soldiers died in World War II. Yeah. And first of all, and remember that 25% of the Russian army, of the Soviet army, were Ukrainians. Thank you, Russian troll. Second of all, remember how the Russians, the Soviets, were actually friends of Hitler and actually had signed a secret friendship treaty, actually a very public treaty, but they had secret agreements with Hitler so they wouldn't attack each other, but they would actually split up the world and split up Europe between them. And it gave Hitler permission to start World War II, and it gave Soviet Union permission to start going after Poland and other places. Remember? And then remember how the only reason the Soviet Union even got involved in the war against Hitler is because Hitler stabbed them in the back. Otherwise, they were Putin. They were Hitler's friend. And then remember how during World War II, America had to step in and provide Russia with a hell of a lot of planes to help Russia save itself. And without America, Russia probably would have lost. I mean, the Soviet Union did a good job, but we helped save their ass. Oh, we don't talk about that. And then remember how once the Soviet Union helped us beat Hitler, they then took half of Europe hostage for 50 years. And created communist dictatorships in Eastern Europe and held these poor people hostage. Okay, that's what happened. Yes, let's remember World War II, when Russia when the Soviet Union used to believe in taking on Nazis, and now they've become them. So exactly, let's go. No, that kind of crap drives me nuts from these trolls. And by the way, we never push back enough on that. Our guys we let Russia get away with that. We let Russia get away with the whole, we were responsible for World War II. Well, actually, you were responsible for World War II, actually. Yeah, you were, Russia. But also, Ukraine was 25%, I believe, of Russia's forces, of the Soviet Union's forces. So when Russia says, even if you want to believe Russia beat the Nazis, well, then guess who else beat the Nazis? The Ukrainians did, and you turned around and invaded them anyway. No, well, and the final point, that's great. So the final point is, well, that's nice. 83 years ago, you did the right thing. You have to go back in history 83 years to find something good you actually did on the world stage. Congratulations. America doesn't have to look back to 1941 to try to find something good we did in the world or something we tried to help. Give me a break. I just always laugh at that kind of stuff. It is. Anybody who's got to go back 100 years to say, well, we did remember back in 1540, we were good people then. Okie dokie. And again, they weren't good people. They took Europe hostage. So horrible what they did to Europe. Right. The same USSR invaded Finland in 1939. Exactly. And actually, since this troll is so proud of the number of Russians that died, I understand several 100,000 Russians died trying to take Finland as well. So good luck with that. Can you show the map again? All right. You get the map again. Woo woo. People love my little map. It's a t-shirt map. We love my map. That's right. USSR availed of Lend-Lease from the U.S. in World War II. Yeah, we gave them planes. I think it was like 14,000 planes or something. I mean, I was reading up on it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. All right. Not a question, a heads up. Who is this? From Jamie. The New York Times just posted Ukraine war classified documents detailing secret American and NATO plans have appeared on Twitter and Telegram. Don't know what that is. Scary. Although it sounds like the Russians hacked and decided to leak something. Having said that, one hopes the Russians hacked something. Actually, we did that. They hacked something that was given to them on purpose. So who knows? I'll look at it after the show. That's interesting. Yes. Well, the T-shirt map. You know what I was doing? The T-shirt map is actually sold by somebody else. But what I was doing was I did hold two auctions of auctioning off the shirt, and then whoever won told me what size. I bought it and then would sign it for them. I got some really cool metallic markers and signed it in either gold or silver or whatever. And then I did two of them. It was nice. I mean, I could do more. I can always do more. But yeah, I'll have to check that story after the show. I will. I don't know. Interesting question. Paul LWC. With this war, could we see countries after it starts to close? I see. I think what he's saying is after the war, will countries start to basically pull away from each other again? Or could we see a lot more closer ties? I mean, I think clearly Ukraine and Poland going to be closer, okay? Clearly Eastern Europe going to be closer, I think. I mean, the ties now with the Baltic states, Poland, Czech Republic, probably Slovakia, maybe Bulgaria and Romania, right? And other than Hungary, you're going to see all of them really pulled together, which is great. And being sort of much closer ties between all of them, which is great. Almost like a regional bloc now within NATO, right? And collectively, they would have some say versus like the Germans and the French, which is great. You're going to see clearly America's engagement with Europe, again, depends who becomes president. Some of the Republicans are good. Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo are good on this stuff. Trump and DeSantis are not, on sort of the whole Ukraine thing. So depending who goes there, certainly we have now seen America engaging with Europe again and working with Europe. We've seen NATO come up again, which is great. Which is great. I mean, NATO's been, we've seen sort of a renewed purpose for NATO, and we now understand why we need NATO. So I think NATO is going to be working, in principle, in general, working together better, although clearly the Turks and the Hungarians are going to be a pain in the ass. So, yeah, I mean, no, I think you're still going to see, individual countries sort of do their thing, but still. Let me see here. Feel free to put more questions on TikTok. What could be the consequences if the Ukrainian counteroffensive fails? Yeah, well, that's Pain Hub. I mean, the thing is, if Ukraine's counteroffensive fails, so basically what that could mean is Ukraine's big counterattack in the next month or two. If, like what happened with the Russians, they end up, using their men, using all the weapons we gave them, and they're not able to get any land back. I mean, the Russians have almost gotten no land in the last couple months of their big counteroffensive. If Ukraine is not able to get any land back and they use all these weapons and then kind of peter out, then you've got a problem. I mean, I think from the Ukrainian perspective, you've got a problem, because then, you call into question, is there anything more they can do to get their land back? Now, there is a chance that if that starts happening, that the Biden finally feels a little more pressure to do a little bit more to help Ukraine. So maybe they get better weapons if that happens. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, the weather's nice now. It's not bad anymore. It's possible, but also then you might see more pressure on Ukraine to reach some kind of deal, which is too bad, because then they're not able to keep fighting. So, we don't know. Obviously, better for Ukraine to have some big success in this counteroffensive than not. Hold on a second. Oh, that's interesting. Felix had a really good point over on YouTube talking about the Russians and the Nazis again. By the way, we don't need to compare the Russians to the Nazis. The Soviets committed the same atrocities the Russians do nowadays, which is my point. Yeah, they're just as bad as the Russians. I mean, the Soviets were. They won World War II, and that's the only thing which differs them from the Nazis, right? So the only difference between the Soviets and the Nazis is that the Soviets won World War II, the Nazis lost it. Otherwise, they all act the same way. Oh, that's funny. JAQ is there. Jack is saying the Russian trolls spell most of the words funny. That's why I found it funny. Well, that's the. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a second thing you posted? The Russian troll spelled most of the words wrong. Oh, I saw a troll on TikTok. Oh, I see. He was bringing up the 20 million when the Russian troll, because they were spelling everything wrong. It said, remember, 20 million Soviet Solider died, as in, well, one of the t-shirts we're selling, which wonderful Poppy, who's on TikTok with us right now, Poppy a Day, that Poppy designed, says Russia is losing, dude. Oh, hold on, I'm going to show you really quick. What the hell? I'll show you the t-shirt. 1 second. It's fun. It's fun. So we made a t-shirt basically mocking the Russian trolls that says Russia is losing, dude, spelling losing incorrectly, because losing should be with 1 O. We put 2, and dude we spelled wrong as well. It should be DUDE, because the Russian trolls kept, first of all, they keep using the word dude, like dude and bro, they love saying. And they make it as one of their, like, because they're trying to sound American, right? So they say dude and bro a lot, but they also say losing, and they always say Ukraine is losing, which I just find funny as hell. So in any case, we made a t-shirt of it that we're selling in my store, which I thought was very funny. But anyway, so you can find the store link in my profile on TikTok and aravosis.com for you guys. More questions. Actually, I can turn the light down a little bit now that a little bit better. You have 2 of those shirts? Oh, nice. Yeah, I like that. That one's brown. I like the brown one. It's really funny. Thank you, Paul, for the super sticker. Well, it's an issue. I mean, Cliff Wolf is saying if Ukraine falls or fails, the blame is on Biden and Milley. Milley's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, our top military, uniformed military official in the U.S. For depriving Ukraine of what they need. Ukraine is daily getting stabbed while USA folks relax and complain about giving our money to them. Again, Biden, I think, has been a big problem. But so are France and Germany. I mean, the problem here is and this leads to bad policy decisions. I can't tell you, other than dragging this out until Ukraine and Russia give up and are willing to negotiate with each other, I don't understand what Biden's goal even is in the war. What's our goal? What are we hoping to have happen? We clearly, I mean, we're not giving Ukraine enough weapons to win. We don't want Ukraine to take back Crimea because we're afraid Russia will go crazy. We don't want Russia to win because if Russia wins, then we're afraid Russia will go after Poland. So what are we actually trying to do? We're trying to give them it's like someone's drowning and you're trying to give them just enough rope and pulling them in just enough so they don't drown, but you don't really want to pull them out of the water either. So it feels like we're almost playing this in a middle game. Like we don't even know what we want to do. It's very, anyway, I don't think it's a good thing, obviously, because this is not the way you win. I think Biden has had a little bit of a weakness on the Ukraine thing from the beginning because of this. He's been very strong otherwise, but he's afraid of Putin. And Putin's not the kind of guy you win by being afraid of, Let's see if we got more here. Do we know how many, who is this? Just to see, Pain Hub. Oh, hey, Pain Hub again. Do we know how many reserves the Ukrainians have? Igor Girkin, who's a Russian military blogger, so, take what he says with a grain of salt, says the Ukrainians haven't even mobilized most of their reserves yet. I don't know. I mean, the Ukrainians have like up to 1 million men. Aravosis Intelligence Agency. That's funny. Yeah. Housed in Langley, Virginia. I don't know. I don't know how many reserves they have, but I think, I'm not going to. Igor Girkin is not. He's not the guy I would trust. Oh, we should have put back about Putin when they took Crimea. The problem with Crimea was the Ukrainians themselves weren't ready to fight back yet. I mean, their military. We in NATO helped them significantly since 2014. That we did do, which is great. And that helped a lot. But in 2014, the Ukrainians weren't in any position to fight back. Unfortunately. So, yeah, PB&J is mentioning New York Times. Ukraine war plan leaks prompts Pentagon investigation. Classified documents detailing secret have appeared. All right, let me actually pull this story up. Let's pull this story up from the New York Times and have a look at it, okay? Since I subscribe to the New York Times. You can buy a T-shirt. The T-shirts are over at store.aravosis.com. You can go to actually maybe one of the mods can put the link in the comments, but also you can just go to my profile on TikTok and you'll see the Linktree link, that URL there, click it, and you'll see a number of things linked, including my store. But yeah, this shirt and a number of other really cool things are there. All right, where is this? Where is this? New York Times leak. All right, let's see. Here it is. We might as well bring up this story. Thank you, Kevin, for there. Classified war documents. So this is from the New York Times 20 minutes ago. Helene Cooper, she's good. Eric Schmidt, he's good. Classified war documents detailing secret American and NATO plans for building up the Ukrainian military ahead of a planned offensive. Oh, so these are our plans for helping Ukraine right now against Russia were posted this week on social media channels, senior Biden administration officials said. The Pentagon is investigating who may have been behind the link of the documents, which appeared on Twitter and on Telegram. Military analysts said the documents appear to have been modified in certain parts from their original format, overstating American estimates of Ukrainian war dead. Oh, interesting. And this sounds like the Russians. They also edited the documents to make the Russian war dead smaller than we had said, and the Ukrainian war dead larger than we had actually said in the document. Cute, huh? Thank you for the gift there, Kanowski. The modifications could point to an effort of disinformation by Moscow, of course. Disclosure in the original documents, which appears as photographs and charts, represents a significant breach of American intelligence. Thank you, Carla. Interesting. Documents do not provide specific battle plans, thank God, like how, when, and where Ukraine intends to launch its offensive. And because the documents are 5 weeks old, they offer a snapshot of time, March 1st. To the trained eye of a Russian war planner, however, the documents no doubt offer many tantalizing clues. Thank you, Kevin, for that. Who is that? Carla for the cactus. The documents mentioned for instance, the expenditure rate of HIMARS munitions, which the Pentagon has not said publicly how fast Ukrainian troops are using HIMARS. The documents do. It was unclear. Okay. Yeah, but that's That's a lie. Yeah, this is one of the ones that the Russians faked. One of the slides said 16 to 17,000 Russian soldiers had been killed. well, that's ridiculous. The estimates for Russian dead are like 60,000 or something. It's not 16,000. Yeah. No. Like I would say 60,000 dead and 140,000 wounded Russians. So yeah, they changed that, which is also smart, actually. One of the things you do if you're working on disinformation, you get a real, this was some of the concern we had when the Russians broke in and stole all those documents from Hillary Clinton and all those guys. The Clinton campaign was that they would go in and change change individual pages to make them even worse. And there you've got to go through it. You don't know which ones are fake, which ones are real, right? A document labeled Top Secret offers the state of the conflict as of March 1st. On that day, Ukrainian officials were at an American base in Wiesbaden. Another document includes columns that list Ukrainian troop units, equipment, and training. Interesting. The document said the equipment delivery times would affect training and readiness to meet the timeline. Total equipment needs for 9 brigades was more than 250 tanks and 350 mechanized vehicles. Okay, I mean, at this point, we don't know how significant this is. Don't know. Yeah. I mean, because we don't know. Thank God the war plans weren't in it. I think it clearly has to be the Russians. It feels like the Russians. Now, one possibility as well is, did we leak it on purpose? Right? I mean, that's a possibility too. We could have leaked the document. Possible. And done it because there's stuff in there that we're trying to trick the Russians on. Who knows? Hopefully, still pretty bad. Still pretty bad. No, this is the kind of stuff that I'm not a big fan of leaking documents. I mean, unless it's just not a big fan of leaking documents. I'm not a fan of Snowden and Reality Winner and all the rest of them. I just, quite literally, we better have a fascist dictatorship in this country before you go releasing documents. You just don't do that. So let's see, but I hope they get whoever did. Let's see, but again, it may be fake. So anyway, all right, guys, let me do a quick summary of the news and then let's get going. And I'm going to have a little dinner. I'll do my summary again. Oh, actually, reminder, since it's Thursday, every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, US, I get together and hang out with you guys with the paid TikTok subscribers and with the paid Discord subscribers, which is basically through Patreon. Basically, if you sign up through Patreon with $5 a month or more, you can link that to the Discord, and then you become a VIP member. And then you get to bid on things in the auction. Oh, now one thing I didn't show you, we also have this week one of these Zelensky sweatshirts, which I love these sweatshirts, but they're the actual sweatshirt Zelensky wears. And it's a wonderfully comfortable sweatshirt, but we're auctioning these off. We found the company that makes them in Ukraine and bought them. But they're the ones Zelensky wore to the U.S. Congress, that he wore to the White House, he wore to the British Parliament, stuff like that. I've got double XL, I do, but we're auctioning them off over on the Discord. But I have one more triple XL. I've got at least one double XL, maybe two, some large, lots of mediums. Nobody's a medium. Who knew? But in any case, let me go here. Okay, so real quick, the news. But anyway, I was going to say the Discord. I'm sorry. So the Discord. So every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, most Saturdays at least, I hang out with the paid TikTok subscribers and the paid Discord subscribers, who are the Patreon subscribers, and we hang out and chat on Discord and here. And it's just closed. It's a sort of a closed audience for those folks as a thank you. And we just hang out and talk for like an hour. My friend Vlad in Ukraine has joined us most Saturdays. He comes and we've beamed Vlad in to answer people's questions and things. He's the guy helping us with all the humanitarian and the military aid we've been doing. So come by and check it out. And it's another reason to sort of help out on Twitter by becoming a subscriber. All right, let me read the stories that we covered today, and then we will sign off. On Discord, you go to the far left corner. Once you've clicked the read me and everything on Discord, okay? So you can see all of the Discord, you go into the left column, and towards the top, you will see $5 a month get together, $25 a month. Actually, it's time for a $25 a month. I've got to do one of those too. But the $5 a month is every week, but you will literally see it says $5 a month, coffee chat, something like that. That's where it will be. All right, Mike, I did sort of a long discussion on the state of the Russian offensive in the East. In a nutshell, the Russians have not done very well And obviously, we've got high hopes for how the Ukrainians do, but there's some stuff holding back or potentially dangerous areas for the Ukrainians as well going into the counter or the offensive this spring. Ukrainians attacked a Russian airbase in Melitopol last night. It seems like the Ukrainians are going after this town in sort of southeast Ukraine as part of a preparation, perhaps, for the counteroffensive. They're going to go after that town as well. Ukraine has backed away from comments suggesting they may be willing to negotiate over Crimea. According to the British Ministry of Defense, it's highly likely that the Russian general in charge of attacking Vuhledar in eastern Ukraine has now been fired. He's the highest level firing this year. There's an European Union squabble over the ammunition that the European Union, 1 million artillery shells that they were trying to get for Ukraine. There's been a little political battle or whatever between the European countries that's holding that back. Not good. The New York Times reports that Germany and France are resisting pressure from Central and Eastern European allies to provide a detailed roadmap towards NATO membership for Ukraine. Another top commodity manager died in Russia under mysterious circumstances. Ukraine has launched an app to help find the 19,000 children Kyiv estimates have been allegedly deported and kidnapped by Russia. And Wikipedia's owner has been fined £8,000 or $10,000 because by the Russians, because they permitted a description of a Russian rock group's song that Russia doesn't like, because it must be a song that about the war. So Russia is hitting them with a $10,000 fine because they wouldn't edit the Wikipedia. So there you go. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. I'm going to go have my leftover pizza. Very exciting. And we didn't get thunder, so the dog will be in good shape. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. So tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, US. Thank you for the gifts as always. Thank you for the moderating. I'm going to skip Discord tonight. We're already at 7:20. I just feel like my voice a little bit. We'll shoot for Discord tomorrow night if we can. Okay. All right, guys, that's it. So I will see you guys tomorrow. All right. Thank you as always. Bye-bye.